Tuesday is here. Welcome to the Wise Guys. It's the best night of the week up until football season, when it'll be just one of the best nights of the week. Dave McCann and Brian Logan in for Blaine tonight. We've got a lot going on. We encourage you to check in on the live stream and follow us on YouTube. We'll put a link in the chat as we always do. Hit the subscribe button. It's all free. Click on the bell. You'll get your notifications whenever we post something new or when we go live. And the more subscribers we get, the happier our wives are. And so do that, please, at YouTube. And then we got a lot waiting for you at ysguys.com. Below.
I'm still looking for one of those.
Yeah, well, this show's going to help that.
I think so. You know, I was on Sports Nation last time with you, and I had mentioned that, and I got a lot of comments and DMs about, sisters and friends that were single. So
potential young ladies.
This is better than any dating app that I've used previously.
So it's like a self-help show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it's good to have you be the host of a self-help show.
Right.
That helps. Right. It helps us all.
Exactly.
So at ysguys.com, you can subscribe for our weekly email. That's free. You get highlights from the show, and that's also where you can go and find all our previous interviews, and we've had like 61 of them, they include Danny Ainge, Marie Osmond, Jimmer Fredette, Sherry Dew. She was on with us a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome. Ty Detmer, Amber Whiting, Mark Pope, Kyle Van Noy, who visited the Ravens this week. We'll see where he lands as a free agent. Jay Hill, Justin Enna, Gennaro Guilford, Sione Puha, Kelly Popinga, Fessy Sataki's been here, Harvey Unga, the new dad, has been with us, and many others are all waiting for you at ysguys.com. We're going to add two cool ones again tonight with Steve Clark, the tight ends coach, and Jen Rockwood, the soccer coach at BYU, as they get ready for seasons, which, by the way, below, first practices for both are a week from today. When you were a week out from your practices at BYU, were you pumped or were you scared, nervous?
So my first year, I was nervous. I was scared because of the stuff I heard from my teammates and how crazy it was going to be. Coming from junior college to Division I, and I wasn't really excited about running up the Y and then having to come back down and still practice. I thought that was kind of crazy and idiotic. I shouldn't have said that. So I'm sorry, Bronco, if you're listening. I thought it was crazy to do that. But going to my senior year, having that experience and somewhat of a successful junior year, I was excited.
Yeah, should be.
When you know what you're doing, you have fun, right?
Right.
When you don't know what you're doing.
It's the fear of the unknown. Like the freshmen come in. Mark Wilson said he was scared to death,
right,
and had never thrown a non-rubber football. And here's a All-American NFL, two-time Super Bowl champion. But he said he was stood over by a tree scared to death as to how he's going to survive here at BYU. And he survived okay.
Yeah. He
did fantastic. So that's all going down a week from today. Practice will be here. The players report on Monday, and then we'll be in the business. So tonight, Steve Clark, tight ends coach, going to join us in a few minutes. And then later, Jen Rockwood, as soccer gets ready for a season. The poll hasn't come out yet, but we expect them to be picked to win the Big 12 and to contend with TCU. So that's there. And then the Big 12 announces the schedule mix, so the matrix for men's and women's basketball. And so we'll talk about it. We don't have the dates, but we know where BYU's going and who's coming in here, and it's all Big 12, and that makes it all very, very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish we had a chance for Texas and Oklahoma. I saw the schedule, and it's obviously you want to play brand name schools, and we get that being the Big 12, but we know that those guys are leaving next year, right? So being able to play, I'm happy we got to play them in football before they left, but wish we had opportunities with basketball. But at the end of the day, I think we're just happy to be in a conference and happy to have a home.
Shout out to John from Harriman, Kay Porter checking in from South Jordan. Still waiting on Singapore and Japan and Colombia and Alaska. Everybody, we look forward to having you join us here on the show. 3-on-3 Sports, by the way, listed the most starts by active FBS quarterbacks. Let's run down the list. Pretty interesting. And BYU's on that top 5 list, and that got our attention.
Yes, number 1 is Bo Nix with 47 at Oregon.
Yeah, and he's back. He's back this year, ready to go. I think the Ducks are. Yeah. They got big plans with him.
He looked good against us, last year.
Then he got hurt, and then he didn't look so great. It's amazing how health helps you look good.
What's also amazing is that traditionally, BYU usually has one game where we make somebody look like an All-American, like it's like an All-Pro. It's just in every sport. Well, in football definitely, but in basketball at times too. And then coming in number 2 is Sam Hartman at Notre Dame with 45 starts,
and he's transferred over from Wake Forest.
Yep. Jaden Daniels, 43 starts, LSU.
Was that the same Jaden Daniels that we knocked around who was at Arizona State? I think it is. Isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's found a home over there at LSU.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Our hearts go. Our hearts
Come
go
to Provo, get beat, then you can do what you want.
Right. Exactly. Then you have Spencer Sanders at Ole Miss. He has 42 starts. Keaton Slovis comes in at 5 with 37 starts. And 34 of those 37 were against P5 schools.
Yeah, that's gold.
Yeah. That's
gold taking a program in. And Dylan Gabriel, UCF's quarterback, he's got 37, so he and Keaton are tied at number 5. So BYU's got that going for him heading into the Big 12. Timothy is with us from Perth, Australia, checking in from down under. Timothy, thanks for watching the show. Heartland College Sports, by the way, they ranked the Big 12 running backs. And Brian Clinton put the list together. He went with Texas at number 1. Jonathan Brooks and Cedric C.J. Baxter. We'll deal with them in October. He's got BYU at number 7 in the Big 12 with Aiden Robbins and Deion Smith, Hinckley Rapati, and Miles Davis. So you've got a guy who's not a BYU guy who's putting BYU's running backs in the middle of the Big 12.
Yeah.
And that caught our attention.
Yeah, I think anybody with the characteristics, the skill sets, and then the performance and the stats that Aiden Robinson had last year, I think it's easy to see that as well. Especially if you take a look at him. I was at a photo shoot a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know that Aiden Robinson was Aiden Robinson. There was a whole bunch of linemen there, and he wasn't big like a lineman, but he was just as tall, just as wide, and the whole time I thought he was a lineman, and so I realized who he was, and I was like, and this is the first time I've heard reports from you and
such
David
a nice
Nixon.
guy.
I'm telling you, like he is a physical specimen. I can't wait to see what he does with this offensive line. Going up against opponents and having an offensive line and UNLV, what he had last year compared to this one is going to be day and night. So it's just interesting to see. But I think that's what when writers and reporters, when they look at talent and they look at body of work, I mean he obviously stands out. I like Hinckley as well. Especially in the past game, what he did coming out the backfield with screens. And
Boise had no idea he was as fast as he was.
I had no idea, he was as fast and as shifty. But getting him in space is obviously going to be a benefit, for the offense. So, and then Miles Davis. I mean, I think we were all going crazy over him within the first 1 to 2 weeks when he started to come out, and him being able to have good vision, making one cut, and then driving down. He reminded me a lot of Jamal Williams, but he also reminded me of Tyler Algier at times as well, being able to have clear vision, put the foot in the ground, and then show that speed.
Stephen's with us for the first time from Brigham City. First time for the live show. Stephen, good to have you here. And Gerald's watching from Fresno. Hello, everybody. And keep letting us know where you're dialing in from. It's all making Steve Clark nervous as he listens, and he's just moments away. The conference preseason favorites. Here's how it looks. Big 12's got Texas. SEC's got Georgia. Big 10 today announcing Michigan is their number 1 preseason team. The ACC starts tomorrow with their media days. It'll either be Clemson or Florida State. USC heads the Pac-12. Boise State tops the Mountain West Conference. Arkansas, by the way, is picked 5th in the SEC West Division. BYU's at Arkansas on September 16th. We've talked about it. That there's got to be a lot of folks who aren't surprised if BYU goes in there and beats them.
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. What's interesting is even though we say that, we still see it as a tough opponent, right? It's SEC, and we saw what happened last year. But for them to still be ranked, 5th in their conference, and for us to say, or projected fifth, right? For us to say, man, this is going to be a tough challenge, lets the type of talent that we're dealing with. When
Plus,
it comes to that game.
we saw them last year, and the quarterback's back, and the running back's back, and they're the home team this time.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a fun one for both sides. That's on primetime ESPN2, BYU at Arkansas. Conference USA preseason poll, they got Sam Houston picked 8th in their first year at Division I. The Bearcats will be here September 2nd, 8:15 Mountain on FS1. Game day starts at 6 on BYU TV. Now, Athlon came out with their Big 12 bowl predictions, and BYU's picked 11th in the preseason poll by the media. Athlon thinks 10 Big 12 teams are going to bowl games, so BYU's on this list. If they weren't on this list, we probably wouldn't have time for the list, but we've got time for the list. So let's run down. This is who Athlon thinks is going bowling and where out of the Big 12.
Yeah, so for Texas, they have in a New Year's Six bowl going to the Cotton Bowl, which, that makes sense. You have Oklahoma, the Alamo Bowl, Pop-Tarts, Kansas State. I never knew we had a Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Oh, yeah. That's a bowl you want to get to.
Yeah.
When it pays out like $8 million, and I think you get all the Pop-Tarts you want.
Oh, really? That's $8 million?
Something crazy.
Yeah, I would definitely go for that, for the $8 million, not the Pop-Tarts. Texas, the Texas Bowls, TCU, Liberty Bowl, Oklahoma State, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Texas Tech, Armed Forces Bowl, Kansas, First Responder Bowl, Baylor, Independence Bowl, UCF, and then Frisco Bowl, BYU versus Air Force.
In the Frisco Bowl, that's back down there in Texas. Not far from, it's not at Cowboy Stadium. But it's over there at the Cowboys' other stadium, I believe.
Okay.
When you're the Cowboys, you have two.
Yeah,
and
right.
So I think that's right. But they've got BYU and Air Force.
I don't like
Here's
that.
the
I don't
thing.
like that matchup.
You look at the matchup, and I thought, you know what? The fact that BYU's on the list to qualify for a bowl game in their first year of the Big 12, that's what I like.
That's a good point.
And then I saw Air Force, and they're back being okay, these days. But I think we'll ask Steve Clark, but I think that the goal of being bowl eligible is a big one.
Yeah.
Going into this schedule that BYU's never seen before, which includes 10 straight P5 opponents. So Athlon's got them going bowling, which I think is pretty cool.
I get a little bit like flashbacks and a little PTSD when I see Air Force. I cover my knees.
They're not the same Air Force that you had to deal with. But Neil is with us from Battleground, Washington. Neil, thanks for checking in with the Wise Guys. FBSschedules.com ranks the Big 12. And they went through who has the toughest schedule, who has the easiest schedule. And the toughest schedule they went with Iowa State, which is actually ranked number 4 nationally. Not Iowa State, but their schedule is ranked the 4th toughest. They got Northern Iowa, at Ohio, Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma, TCU, at Cincinnati, at Baylor, Kansas, at BYU on November 11th, Texas, and Kansas State. So according to FBSschedules.com, that's the toughest of all the Big 12 teams. Then I thought, well, what's the easiest? Yeah. Who might have that? And they're saying Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and there's just 62 nationally. Central Arkansas, at Arizona State, South Alabama, at Iowa State, Kansas, at West Virginia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, at UCF, at Houston, and then BYU, which is November 25th.
Thanksgiving weekend in Stillwater. After further review, by the way, just wrapped up on BYU TV before we came on the air, featuring the dangerous duo tonight, Jaron Hall and Puka Nacua, our season premiere, and you can watch that anytime on the BYU TV app. Next Tuesday is AFR's annual touchdown show. That's all the touchdowns from 2023. Nice. 5 o'clock Mountain on the BYU TV app, just before an all-new Wise Guys. The touchdown show's awesome because you can't not feel good.
Right.
If you're having your worst day, turn on the touchdown show, you watch it for a few minutes, you go, okay, I think I can make it.
Well, I think it also can give you a little bit of hope as well for, to see some of the returning guys that made touchdowns and made some big plays, just to realize, we got these guys coming back. They have a little bit more experience, and they have a lot more health. And so, it could help fans become a little bit more hopeful.
Our first guest tonight's been coaching the tight ends at BYU since 2016. Before that, he was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Weber State and Southern Utah. Before that, he was a defensive assistant at Utah. It's our pleasure to welcome Steve Clark to the Wise Guys. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here, and I'm glad Fowler's not here.
Yeah, Blaine had a lot of questions, and then he was out of town doing nothing. By the way, he's just out of town doing nothing.
Yeah, sure.
But
he didn't want to face me. He's scared of me.
Hey, how has the experience of running an offense, coaching quarterbacks, and coaching defense helped you focus on how to help a tight end become the best he can be?
Well, I think it's coaching defense. You know how to stop them. You know what's hard for them. You know, jamming the tight ends and rerouting the tight ends. And as a quarterback, quarterback coach, you're teaching the quarterbacks, what they're going to do, how they work to get open. They're a little different than receivers in that they use their bigger bodies. They don't get wide open, but they're always open just because of their size. So throw it to them. They'll make the play.
Yeah, what's interesting about this question, my senior year was completely different compared to my junior year. And I think a lot of it had to do with me just being in the film room, but also studying receivers and talking to some of the guys that I was close with and trying to get in their minds and understanding, when you ran this type of route, why did you do that, right?
Yeah.
And I always thought, if I went over and trained for maybe a little bit and just picked up on certain little nuances of running routes and breaking down, if that would help me transfer over to helping me guarding receivers, would you recommend that?
Absolutely.
For you guys?
In fact, I spend a lot of time talking to the safeties. They both asking me, what's hard on a tight end, and then me asking them what's hard on a safety. Absolutely. I've watched film with defensive guys. They want to know why we're doing what we're doing, and that's a big part of coaching. Kids these days, they want to know why you're doing things.
Yeah.
And so they're a lot better when they know why you're doing it, or why you're releasing that way, why you're trying to get that kind of leverage. They're reading stances, splits. There's so much to it, and the more that you can learn about the other side, the better off you're going to be.
That's another really good point too. So when Bronco took over in 2010, he would in practice he would say, "Hey, I'm calling this play. If I call this play, think double move." And I was so amazed, and I was like, "Why is this taking a year and a half for me to understand this concept?" And so throughout every single practice, he would, call a play and associate it with, "This is what I think the offense is going to do."
Yeah, yeah, and we're looking at pre-snap reads. We're looking at shells. There's so much going on pre-snap that gives you clues. Not every time, it's not always right, but you're getting clues of what they're gonna, and fronts. I mean, fronts match with coverages. So you get this front, you're gonna probably get this coverage. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Hey, Kay Porter writes, "Hey, Coach Clark, great man. My family and I have known him since he was at Provo High School. He had a great impact on all my kids." So you got friends here tonight.
Yeah, Provo Bulldogs. That's the high school of champions right there.
Yeah, so. All 10 of them McCanns are at Orem Tigers. Yeah, we're not the school of champions. We're not. We're okay. We had radio station KOHS. That's why I'm here today. It wasn't because of championships. But
that's nice of him to say. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, Matt Bushman was your tight end before Isaac Rex. Led the team in receiving in 17, 18, and 19. Primed for a huge 2020 before a season-ending injury on the last day of practice. In Aaron Roderick's offense, how vital is the tight end spot?
It's very vital. And if you talk to, we watch a lot of Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And we see what they do with their tight ends. And Andy Reid calls them the do-it-all guys. You have a different formation, it's the tight ends doing it. You have a different motion, it's the tight ends doing it. You have a different protection, the tight ends do it. You're so tied into everything that the O-line is doing, everything that the receiver's doing, outside receiver, slot receiver, and then we have our own route trees as a tight end. There's so much to it. So it's, I'm the tight ends coach, so of of course, I'm going to say that they're vital.
Yeah, I knew that's why I said how vital, not just vital, because I know we.
Like on a scale of 1 to 10.
Like, yeah, 11 or 12. So, you know, a lot of offenses you see nowadays in the spread stuff, they don't use them. But in this offense, you know, we don't leave the field. You know, there's always one, sometimes two, sometimes three on the field. And, you know, putting a tight end in line, putting two tight ends in line, putting a tight end in a wing, it creates extra gaps that defenses have to account for. And, you know, to drop the safety down, now it opens up the pass game.
Glenn from the Philippines with us on the Wise Guys. Thank you, Glenn, and good morning. Maggie Clark on YouTube asked a question. Hey, ask Coach Clark if he can shred on the guitar. Does that feel like that feels like an inside baseball question?
Tell Maggie that I was just doing it about a half hour ago, and she heard it.
You're talking to Maggie right now. Oh, is this? We know who this Maggie is.
That is my daughter, Maggie.
Maggie, welcome to the show.
She knows I can shred.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Nice. I've always had this question. I've been done playing 12 years now. It was easier when I was playing to figure out the rotation of tight ends based off and what the play was going to be based off of the tight end that came in, right? So, having obviously the formation is one thing, but then having a certain guy knowing, okay, this is the stud, kind of receiver guy. This is the blocker. As an offense, naturally you're going to have certain guys that fit those roles, but how do you disguise that, from a defense perspective?
That's a great question. I'm not going to tell you.
That's a off air, offline question.
No, it's I spend a lot of time during the week. So we start making our call sheet Tuesday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. We start making our call sheet. I start personnelling it those nights. So I have to make sure that this guy's not in every time we run that concept. Even though he might not be the best one that runs that concept, I have to mix it up because they're so clued in on, okay, Ethan Erickson's in, we're spreading it, we're going to run speed option, which I saw as a tendency watching it last year recently. So, Isaac's in or Mason's in. They're in a running. I mean, that also shows you the importance of the tight ends when you can do both at the same time. Right. When you can run the ball, you can throw with them in there. You can disguise what you're doing, but that's something that we're well aware of going into the game. Okay, we can't put these two in at the same time. They'll know something's coming. So we are constantly changing it and mixing it up. We probably have 15 different personnel packages that we use in a week.
Yeah, I think that does define how important the tight end position is, and I think especially when you think about kids growing up nowadays. I mean, everything is really specialized, right? Yeah. And their trainings are not only just speed and quickness, but it's specific to their position, right? And so I almost wonder how can a kid, or I guess that again adds the value of a tight end, if they can learn all the different nuances that a tight end needs to be, from being split out, from being connected to the box, and then being able to block as well.
So it's getting harder to find because high schools are kind of shying away from a tight end. So we're looking for the bigger receivers that we feel have the ability, have the toughness to be able to come in and put their hand in the grounds, but also be able to run still run the routes that. So we bring them in, and they're about 200 pounds, and I tell them 230. That's the least you can weigh. And Mason Wake really took that to heart and jumped up to like 280.
Wow.
So
does it affect his leaping ability, Mason Wake, at 280?
He knows what I'm telling him right now. He's listening.
Is it possible, or have you thought of going maybe the other way around and maybe recruiting maybe a athletic, power
Tackle.
forward?
Yeah.
Both. That too. That's gonna be my next one.
So when you take a receiver and put him at tight end, that's kind of disrespectful. But you take a tackle and put him at tight end, that's a huge jump. And they love that. Yes, we have Anthony Olson, who's on our team, played 1 year of football, but was a basketball player.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we do that. I mean, some of the greatest tight ends of all time were Antonio Gates, basketball player. Trying to think of the other tight ends that were that way. They brought him in, never played high school or college, and made him tight ends. They're good power forwards. I mean, Karl Malone would have been a great tight end.
He would have been all right.
You know, they work in tight spaces. They're used to the contact and having to fight for the ball.
I'm assuming that the transition may be harder because it means going from one sport versus a position, but maybe once the development is finalized, you get a better product from a basketball player?
I think so. I think so. The route running and pass catching is no problem. It's the physical aspect of the leverage aspect of it. There's so much in the run game, in the pass protection.
Are you saying
games.
basketball players are soft?
I'm not saying that.
The mailman wasn't soft.
Yeah.
Forrest Twelveable with us from Houston tonight. BYU tight ends coach Steve Clark's our guest on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com. Let's talk about Isaac Rex for a moment. 6'6". He takes over for Bushman in 2020, becomes a freshman All-American, finishes tied for the most touchdowns by a tight end in the country with 12. What'd you see in Isaac then? And then we'll bring it to what you're seeing right now.
What I see in Isaac is that combination of being able to do both, to having the tenacity of, getting in the ugly trenches, but also being good enough to get out and get open and play in the open field. The best thing about Isaac is his catch radius. He's got long arms. He's got really good hands, and I think he's second all time in the tight end touchdown, and I think he needs 2 to break the record.
He's got 21 already for his career.
And I get a $100,000 bonus as soon as that happens.
Pitt is going to say, "Hey, I didn't have a COVID season." That's the first phrase that's going to be out of Pitt's mouth.
So, well, I mean, tell Dennis to give me a call when that happens.
Dennis watches the show. He'll be on with us next month. Yeah, he's been on before. He's awesome. And he'll take credit for everything that Isaac does well.
Well, he does work with Isaac, and he's been working with a lot of our tight ends, which we're thankful for. Dennis was a GA when I was a GA when Dennis was playing, and you could tell he was special, but took the tough route to be one of the greatest tight ends in college football history. So, but yeah, Dennis. I'll text Dennis after. I'll split it with him.
Let's talk about Rex and his ankle. When we talked to him in spring, at the end of spring, he said, "I'm going to be fully ready for the fall." That ankle injury was so bad at USC at the end of the 2021 season, multiple surgeries and all that stuff. He plays last season on a bad ankle, which limits what he can do, but he's got the guts and tenacity to not let you take him out of the game. So as we sit now, a week from where the first practice is, where's he at with his ankle?
I think he's improved. I think what you don't know about Isaac last year is during the game, before the game, he'd get shot. So, he didn't feel a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But it was during the week when he had to practice, because you can't get shot every day, when he was dragging that ankle around.
You can.
You can't.
But no one's going to.
But you shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
They said that if he did do that it wouldn't. He'd get a tolerance for it, and so on game days he wouldn't be able to. He would feel it.
Right.
So he drugged that ankle all year long, and there were times when he could barely walk in practice, and that it's hard because you can't try things out on game day.
Mm-hmm.
So
he rarely practiced during the week.
No, he did practice, but there were times we had to say, Isaac, you're limping too much, and And you'll probably see him limp some, but he had to really learn how to walk. It's not so much that it's hurting him; it's just it kind of drops. It's kind of like drop foot. You'll just see it kind of collapse, and it looks like he's limping. But and I asked him. He's so sick of me asking him, because I asked him a million times, Isaac, are you all right? You got to tell me. You got to let me know. And he's like, I'm fine. It just looks worse than it is, but So hopefully he's, back to as close as he can. I don't think he'll ever be 100%. The same person that did Dak Prescott's surgery had the same exact injury did Isaac, and I think Dak was better last year than he was the year before. Yeah, so hopefully we're.
And wasn't the common thought coming out of the surgeries where this is an 18-month injury?
Yeah.
And we're just right at the tail end of what would be 18 months, right?
But he was determined to come back and play, and we needed him to. Yeah. But I want to make it clear, I did not ever force him into anything that he didn't feel comfortable with. But he never complained. He still has never complained one time. He's always. I've asked him to practice. He's done it. I've asked him to go into games. He's done it. He's never said no. I can't do that.
Yeah, we talked to his dad a couple months ago.
That's a problem.
Yeah, Byron, who also watches this show. Hey, Byron. We were talking to him, and he goes, well, do you want to ask him? He and Slovis are watching TV in the next room. This was in the springtime. This was just before they had, I think it was just before
spring ball.
Lexi had her baby, or maybe right after, but it was right around May or April, but anyway, I think it was after practice because they were down there doing conditioning drills together.
Well, they want to adopt Slovis. They've thrown it out there.
And so I remember talking to his dad, and he said the same thing. And he seemed at times he was tearing up just because of the pain and just the frustration that he saw his son going throughout the season. And I've seen one player do that, outside of the team. So I had just graduated, and I remember Riley Nelson was having a fight day in, day out, and we didn't know that he had like broken ribs or broken back. Right?
There was a lot of things broken.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I remember just the team like rallying around him, and even my cousin at the time, Joe Sampson, he played safety, and he would come and tell me stories like, man, like it energizes us like no other, because he's the leader of the team, and we see him out there with a broken back. So my question to you is what was the impact of the guys around him when they saw him going through his struggles?
Well, I have 2 points of reference. I remember when Matt Mushman in a couple of years ago, when he blew out his Achilles, calling up practice and having 9 guys just sobbing, and having to rally him back. This Isaac's happened at the end of the season, so it really didn't affect us as much as Matt's did. But yeah, there were. I talked to my guys. Our room. I mean, if you talk to us, we there's no excuses. This next guy needs to. He might not be as good, but he's going to be as tough. He's going to be as mentally as tough. He's going to go out there and he's going to fight. And that's the best thing we could have done for Isaac at that time, is go out there and fight, and we did. And Mason Wake played a position that he rarely plays in that game, and did great, and could have scored a touchdown, but instead he wants to run over 5 or 6 people, and so he does.
He's got to get over that.
But that's what's expected, and it's out of respect for Isaac. And Isaac's a team leader, but doesn't say much. But when he does, they're listening.
Kevin from Orem is with us tonight. Sam checking in from Bakersfield, California. Thanks, Sam. Last, what potential do you see with Rex and Slovis? I know they've been spending all summer working on timing and all of those things. From Rex's coach's perspective, what's the potential there? So,
they have their player-run practices during June and July, and they've had great chemistry. They're locked into each other, but you don't know till it's 11 guys.
Right.
And Keaton has a rush coming at him. Then we'll find out what kind of, chemistry they have when the bullets are live, when it really matters. And hopefully, Isaac can become a, security blanket for Keaton. And that's kind of what tight ends do. They're kind of a guy you can go to quick if you have to. And hopefully Isaac and all the tight ends can be that for our quarterbacks.
Rex had 22 receptions, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year. Before that, 18 catches for 191 and 3 touchdowns. As a freshman, 37 receptions for 429 and 12 touchdowns. Tied for most among all tight ends in the country, as we mentioned a moment ago. What kind of numbers do you want to see, do you expect to see from Rex now back healthier than he's been since before the USC game?
What I want and expect are I want him to have 100 catches and 50 touchdowns. I don't coach him that way. I coach him to get open. I don't want to say he needs to have this many catches, because that puts pressure on quarterback, and they have enough to do, and that's not my job. My job is to coach them to get open and to make the catch. And if we're doing that, if we're getting open, that's really all we can do. We can't do any more than that. It puts a lot of added pressure on the quarterback to say, well, we want more targets. But, we always do, but I'm not going to put a number on it.
Maybe if you put a number on, like, an incentive, like, hey, if you give me X amount of targets, I'll give you some of my... That's
where Byron Rex comes in.
Yeah. Rex knows all about buying passes from Ty Detmer.
Absolutely.
So camp starts, next Tuesday. I'm excited because football starts, and I'm no longer going to be bored, but yet I don't have to put my body through, the pain anymore. As a coach, what's the excitement like, from this perspective?
Well, the excitement from my perspective is I start getting really agitated. You ask my wife, she's right over here. She tell you I start getting a little bit agitated, a little bit more pensive. It's fun, but also, there's a lot to it. There's a lot that goes into it, and so you look forward to it, but you have to realize it's a long season, and you have to take it, day by day. I know no one wants to hear that. I mean, you talk about bowl games in the future. I'm looking for next Tuesday. We're going to have a practice with helmets on. We need to be the best that we can be, right, and coach them the best that we can be, and just build on each day. And but it's a tough season. I mean, it's a long season. Last year was probably the hardest season I've ever one of the hardest I've ever been around. And
why is that?
Well, the 4-game losing streak. I mean,
right.
You start off 4-1, and then you see it week after week after week, and you're fighting. You're fighting to keep guys believing each week, which I think they did. But it's that stress builds up. I mean, people say, "What's the best part of your job?" Of winning. What's the worst part of your job? Losing.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think it's going to be different with the Big 12 or being in a conference? Because those whenever we lost a game during conference, we still had our goals, right? Yeah. Especially early in the season. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about that. What that effort is going to look like.
So Coach Roderick, Aaron talks about that all the time, saying, "Hey, you lose a game, you're still in it. When you're independent, you lose a game, you're out."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and then each week you throw up. This is what so and so did. This is where we're standing. You have that goal. Okay, we need to move up. So you have a goal, and you have something you can measure yourself against. Right. Well, you didn't have that at Independence. I mean, you just
You had to go undefeated.
You had to go undefeated.
And sometimes that wasn't even enough.
And
You had
that
to
wa-
take
that
a
wa-
game on 3 days' notice, and sometimes that wasn't enough.
And they told us, look, you're going to play this. The chances of you going to a New Year's Six, even if you win that, are still pretty slim.
Yeah.
So there was.
It was cool that you
great.
did, though, because it was one of the great stories of the year.
Yeah, it was. That year was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we were winning. We were winning every game.
That's why.
11-1 is
it was
always fun.
So
Amber from New York City is with us tonight. Steve Clark's the tight ends coach at BYU on the Wise Guys as BYU prepares for its first season in the Big 12. You look at your tight end roster in the room, you got 8. There might be more. That's 8 that I came up with, but you got Rex, Ethan Erickson, and Mason Wake. Those are guys with the most playing experience. Are they your main rotation? You got Jackson Bowers, highly touted kid coming in, a 4-star recruit, and a handful of other guys. But is it those first 3? Any team would love to have 3 good tight ends to begin with.
Yeah, so we're going to do something a little bit different this year. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this.
I like
You're
how
just
you
with
looked at your.
friends.
I like how you
You're
looked
with
at your
friends.
wife.
Did Suzanne clear that? You were okay with that? Yeah, okay. She said okay.
So we're gonna split up and have 2 sets of team going at the same time, which we haven't done since I've been here, to
Nice.
get guys reps.
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple practices will be split. We'll be able to get more guys reps. I'll get to see all of them in our team situations.
Yeah.
And that was my idea. If Jay Hill says it was his idea,
Beautiful.
it was not his idea. It was mine.
Okay, we'll follow up with Jay when he comes back on. But this also gives the receivers, the coach, a chance. So this gives Fessy,
It
right?
gives
This is everybody doing everything.
Everybody. You're in helmets, so you're not wearing guys thin.
Yeah.
And so you're getting, if you get thin,
Mm-hmm.
they've built up reps, and I can get 8, 9 guys.
A full practice.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've learned from other places. I think Alabama does it that way. So, and they're okay.
Yeah,
They're,
right.
they're
It seems to work out
Yeah.
for them.
sometimes.
How's
yeah.
this Bowers kid? And you signed another 4-star who's in school, and then he's got a mission before I think you'll see him in games. But what is Bowers? Is Bowers here for 4 and on, or is he a mission kid? Where's he at, and how do you bring a young guy like that, keep him focused and interested enough to develop?
Well, we said that yeah, he'll be here for 4 years.
Okay.
When we signed Dallin Hooker, we didn't think he was going on a mission, but he went on one. Guys worked on him. And
Right.
he ended up
It
going.
happens.
So I don't want to say never, but I've been meeting with Jackson frequently, and he is awesome. And he's picked up this offense as good as anybody has.
Really?
I have high hopes for him. I don't want to put any pressure on him this year because he is new, but he knows it, and that's half the battle.
Is he good enough to win a spot in the next 37 days? Or is he just good enough to be a star before he's done?
Well, I'm not saying, because I have my opinion,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm not throwing that.
Yeah, don't-
I'm
don't-
not throwing that out there.
You know, we ask a lot of crazy questions
because, well,
on
I
this show.
just I'm not putting pressure on
Right.
on a freshman. I mean, it's a big jump, even if you're a 4 or 5 star. It's a big jump. So.
Well, look, when you have a 6'6" former freshman All-American healthy at tight end, that's something that the young kid can watch and go, okay, someday I want to be like this.
And that's the beauty of an Isaac Rat. That's the beauty of a Mason Wake. That's the beauty of an Ethan Erickson. They've been through the battles. They can go out and teach those young guys how to do everything that they need to do in this offense, which is a ton.
Right.
So.
Hey, John's got a question. Do the tight ends have to adjust what they're doing when the other quarterbacks come in, like Retzlaff, who has a different throwing motion than Slovis?
Yes.
What's it like? What's the difference like?
Is he lefty? Is he a lefty?
No.
No, he just throws
Retzlaff
differently.
throws it so hard
Really?
Oh my gosh, it's different. It's a different ball coming out of his hand. So
You're making me feel uncomfortable just how you your expressions.
I tell him, hey, you have to know when Jake's throwing to you. You have to get your head around and your hands up faster, just because it comes out and Jake does not care. It's coming, and
He just expects him to catch it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I love Jake, and I'm not complaining. I'm just that's the way he throws it. That's the way we're gonna catch it.
I was going to ask you. I mean, have you guys asked him to like, take it off?
No.
A little bit.
No,
a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
I can't wait.
I got an NIL deal if you take it off a little bit.
I can't wait for BYU fans whenever his time comes to see the ball come out of his hand.
Really?
It's and he's still young. He's still learning. His time will come, but it comes out. It comes out at different angles, and you never know.
He's got a good opportunity to learn from Slovis.
Yeah.
And he talked about that on Sports Nation when we had him on, about how valuable that was for him. There's a lot of pressure on Slovis. He's got a lot of experience. He's been at USC and he's been at Pitt. Now he's at BYU to finish. What have you been most impressed about him since January when he got here?
Leadership. He's been a great leader. Got the guys going.
How does a new kid in town become the leader?
I don't know, but he's done it. He took them. They all went down to St. George. They've bonded together. He has the respect, I think, because he has so many starts at different. You're a quarterback at USC. There's some credibility that comes with that, and so, and watching him, he demands it without demanding it. You just are drawn to him, and he's running the drills, and he's telling them where they're going, and he's telling them how they're running the routes, and I've been real impressed with his leadership.
So this is a chicken for the egg type of question when it comes to the quarterback position. Do you think that a quarterback has to be that born type of leader to have the ultimate success that he could have, or can it be taught? Or I almost think that it's together. There's this synergy between being a quarterback and then being a leader. Like if you're a leader, you kind of almost are drawn to the position. Obviously, if you have the skill sets, right, and the characteristics. I just don't know if you can be a quarterback and not be a leader.
Well, I think that there's been a lot of quarterbacks I've been around who have talked the talk, but they get into the games and then it's not. And guys are going to follow those that can perform. Once they show they can perform, they can pretty much say whatever they want, but they have to be playing at the highest level. They do that. I mean, the players want a guy that leads by example.
Yeah. A couple more questions with Steve Clark, and then we're going to hit you up with 5 quick ones and get you out of here. I think it's date night, and Suzanne's ready to go. 5
quick ones? They'll
be the toughest. Well, let's see how it goes. It might turn into something like that. But before we get to there, what are you most interested in seeing about this football team in this first year of the Big 12?
Our defense.
Mm-hmm. And what do you want to see from him?
Well, Jay Hill's the best defensive coordinator in America.
Did he tell you that, or are you telling us that?
I worked with Jay. So Jay and I started our careers at the same time in 2001 at Utah. So I know Jay.
Yeah.
Jay is an excellent coach, and I'm excited to see. I've already seen it, but I'm excited to see him put that. No pressure.
Yeah, right.
No pressure, but I'm excited.
He's got a little pressure on him. Come on.
Yeah, and if it doesn't work out, I have his number for everybody to call. No, I'm really excited about what they're doing over there. So, yeah.
This next question is going to test your mettle here, and we're going to find out just how what makes you tick. BYU's had some great tight ends over the years. If the game's on the line and you need a reception, which tight end are you going with? Gordon Hudson, Chad Lewis, Dennis Pitta, Johnny Harline, Matt Bushman, or Isaac Rex? And don't just say Bushman or Rex because you coach them. We want a complete
I'd have to go with Bushman or Rex.
But it's because of the coaching?
The coaching is so good. Bushman made some incredible
Yeah.
catches. The ones that he made it against Utah in that big game that were as good as you couldn't go wrong with any of them. I mean, Clay Brown caught the biggest.
Look, how much time do you have in between plays? 25 seconds?
I'd go 12 personnel and put 2 of those guys out on the field.
Yeah, which ones?
I'd go Bushman and
That's good.
Pitta.
That's
Bushman and Pitta. That's good. I'm glad you mentioned Dennis because he's going to be on here in 3 weeks and would have to follow up if you left him off that
So
list.
I have in my office, I have a trophy that Dennis won that's been sitting in there for at least 5 years. And I tell him every time it's sitting in my office. And he will not come and pick it up. So
Listen, we're just glad he got his schoolwork done so he get in
You
the
can
Hall
have
of
it.
Fame.
No, really, I'm serious. Can I have it?
you can have it. I'll sell it to you.
Yeah. Top price.
See, when you said sell.
That's when Dennis will come back in and say, okay, you sold it. I want my cut. All right, 5 questions for Steve Clark. These are rapid fire. Just tell us first things that come to your mind. Bilo?
Favorite sports movie? 2-minute drill. 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
Favorite sports movie?
Don't look at Suzanne. You just know.
Got to use a timeout. Got to use.
Coach Rockwood's here. She's already
All right,
answered
all
these
right,
questions.
okay.
You got one timeout left.
All right. The television version of Bull Durham.
You mean the edited version?
The edited version.
Bull Durham.
I don't know what
Good
that is.
baseball movie.
Oh, it's a baseball
It's a
movie.
baseball
Oh, okay.
movie. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay,
I
Bull
love
Durham.
baseball.
Bull Durham, the edited
The
version.
edited.
Okay.
I'll go Field of
Is there-
Dreams. Field of Dreams better than
Is there a
that.
non-edited
What
version?
happened to Bull Durham? You just wiped them out for Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams.
Okay, Field of Dreams is in. All right. We keep track of these two.
Favorite singer or band?
Favorite band is Rush. There is no other bands.
How do you really feel about Rush?
Me and Greg Rebel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Rush is good.
I don't know who that is either. Favorite breakfast cereal?
I don't eat breakfast cereal.
I tried to use that same line. They wouldn't let me.
Grape nuts.
Grape nuts. Okay. You put any sugar on that or just
Absolutely.
okay?
I've never heard that either.
I
What?
found
Three
that
for three.
if you put enough sugar on grape nuts, it becomes a sugar-coated cereal.
Me and Brian need to go watch Field of Dreams while
Grape
listening
nuts.
to Rush and eating grape.
Let's do it in your office while I'm holding the trophy.
Yeah.
Dennis' trophy.
Dennis, his Heisman.
Yeah.
His
All right.
winner-
Favorite ice cream.
No, great.
But don't tell us you don't eat ice cream. Come on.
Vanilla. I once asked for vanilla when I was a kid,
Vanilla.
and my mom literally said this: "You want vanilla? Like your personality?"
Moms know just what to say.
And I've been scarred.
Look, I like vanilla because then you put stuff on it that
Yeah.
becomes something else.
Yeah. There's a lot of options there.
All right, here's the tough one, but it should be so easy. You ready? Go ahead.
Favorite advice from your wife, Suzanne?
Favorite advice.
Favorite advice from my wife.
This is a tough one.
So she said, this is hard for me to say, but when we said we were going to go be a coach, she said, you go be a coach and you don't worry about us.
Mm.
And she's always backed that up.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that.
You want to come and talk?
See, that was our Barbara Walters last question. Just get you all emotional. Hey, we'll see you next Tuesday at practice.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you so much for coming in and
Thanks,
Coach.
guys.
and sharing your insights. And so it would be Pitta. Did Pitta and Bushman you put into the game if you had to have something? I don't know what Isaac's thinking right now, but he has a chance to earn his way into that.
Well, he's
duo.
got a little bit more to do. I just bought Matt's stroller from him, by the way.
Interesting.
Got grandbabies coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, let's out of here. Thank you.
I'll be there Monday to get the trophy.
I'll have it ready for you.
The great
Thanks,
Steve
Coach.
Clark, tight ends coach at BYU. Coach Jen Rockwood, soccer coach, is going to join us in just a couple of minutes. Great stuff, and that's such an important position. And Isaac, as a freshman, was different as a sophomore and a junior. Jaron Hall was different in how he fed the tight end spot, and now here he has a chance with Slovis, and they're building that chemistry and a chance, and how healthy that tight end position has a chance to get back to the 2020 numbers, where it made life easier for Algier, it made life easier for Neil Pau'u, Dax Milne, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, I guess it's funny because we always think that, or as analysts or maybe fans, we think, the offense starts with the running game or starts through the quarterback. But, I mean, I think Coach made a good point of it starting through, the tight ends and just the strategic approach of how he, rotates his guys. We had some insights into that. And I think I value that position a lot more than I did prior to, this conversation, which is kind of sad to say because I've been playing and been around football, my whole life. But I think, to your first question, that shows how much value, a position like that, really is, because they have their hands in so many different areas of the offense.
I'm surprised he didn't just get up and walk out after you said you didn't know Rush. Never heard Rush,
no.
But fortunately he stayed. Thank goodness for that.
You guys always walk out on me when I say,
hey, our live streamers want to hear from the soccer coach. So he's heard enough from us. Let's bring in Coach Rockwood, our second guest tonight, the only head coach in the successful history of women's soccer at BYU. Been at the helm since 1995, number 12 all time with 435 Division I victories. Her 75.1% winning percentage is 8th best among active coaches. 7 times she's been voted as Conference Coach of the Year, and for the first time she's leading the Cougars into the Big 12. A pleasure to welcome back to the show Coach Jen Rockwood. Did I read that exactly as you wrote it?
Yeah, sure. Been around so long, I don't know what they say anymore.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, well, thanks
so
for
much has
having me.
happened since our last visit.
Yeah.
And now you've got your schedule, which we want to talk about, and practice starts next Tuesday for your 28th season. How has the how do we say it, the elevation to a P5 program changed things for your squad?
To be honest, I don't know that a whole lot's changed.
Right.
We've tried to be a nationally competitive program, ever since we started the program 28 years ago, and so we're obviously very excited about the move into the new conference, and I know how great it is for BYU athletics overall, particularly for football, and anything that helps football helps all of us other Olympic sports, and so we're very excited about that. But I think it's just something that's going to be new for us, a new challenge. But I don't think we've really done anything too different. We'll have to watch a lot more film as we get closer to conference play, not being as familiar with the Big 12 schools. But other than that, we're kind of just moving along like we've always moved, and the girls have been working hard this summer and really excited to start next week. I
know the last 4 years are concerned. 2019, the Elite Eight. 2020, the second round. 2021, the national championship game. 2022, the Sweet 16. It's this way. We've talked about it for a long time, that soccer's been Big 12 ready long before the Big 12 invited. The preseason coaches poll, media poll hasn't come out yet as far as we know, but we expect BYU to be picked number 1, if not number 1, with TCU as a close 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, we would hope we're prepared. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're always preparing every year, and this will be our 4th conference. And, there's always a learning curve going into a conference, especially a P5 conference, which, we've never done before. But, we hope that we're P5 ready, for sure. I mean, we plan on that. We have really high expectations. And, I don't know where they'll put us, but we have a lot of returning players. And so we expect to be pretty good next year, and really looking forward to it.
Next year, next week.
Next week, yes. It comes fast.
Yeah.
When it comes to this being your 4th, new conference, is there things that you can take away from going into, the other new conferences previously, or is it got to be a situation, like case-by-case situation?
I think it's going to be case-by-case. I think it will be weekend by weekend. One of the things that we're going to face this season that'll be new is the logistics of the travel. Everyone's going to be traveling a little bit more, but I think for us, Sunday soccer's a Sunday sport, right? Across the country in college and women's college, and so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going to be playing Thursday, Monday, and so that's a really challenging schedule considering 5 of our games in conference will be on Mondays.
And won't have a practice day.
Won't have a practice day in between there.
Does that make Saturday the practice day coming from the Thursday game? Does that work? I mean, we'll find out.
I mean,
right?
we'll find out. And
Yeah.
I think that will be kind of the biggest challenge, is to really, and every week it'll be a little bit different based on home or away. But again, I think this group particularly that has a lot of experience, most of this starting group was playing and significant contributors in 2021 and have been around for, a lot of them are 5th and 6th year seniors. Yeah. And so we've tried to travel a lot non-conference to kind of get used to the cross-country type trips. And that's not easy by any means, and it will be a challenge. So I think that's something that will be part of our game plan, is not just preparation for opponents, but how are we going to make sure that we're prepared for a quick turnaround off of a Monday game to a Thursday, and then obviously a preparation over the weekend for a Monday game. So
yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to go over that schedule here in a minute. Tell us, there's been a rule change since last season, and maybe there hasn't, but there were 7 ties. You're 11-3 with 7 ties. And I know you're not happy about that rule, but did it go away, or is it still here?
No, it is unfortunately still here. We don't know.
The coaches didn't revolt?
There's not much we can do. I don't think anyone really approved it. I think a lot of us were surprised that it passed.
Yeah.
I don't think I personally don't feel it's good for the game.
And what did it do? It eliminated overtime?
It eliminated the golden goal or sudden victory overtime. And obviously in soccer, most people's complaint is there's not enough goal scoring. Yeah. Right. And typically that's something that we take a lot of pride in, is that we tend to play a very attacking style and like to score a lot of goals. And last year, sometimes it just didn't fall for us. And we know that had we had an extra 30 minutes, most of those games we were in pretty good control of the game.
Sure.
We were out shooting our opponents. We had the momentum. And so I think that impacted us. And it was a tough lesson for us, because I don't think we've ever had more than 2 or 3 ties in a season. 7,
and it's not necessarily a negative. It's just the result
kind
of the stat. Where you got a team just going, let's just hang on.
Yeah.
They don't even have to try to win. Let's just hang on to regulation. We get out of Provo with a tie,
absolutely.
Which never happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally changes our opponent's mindset, I think. Doesn't necessarily change ours. But they can sit back a little bit more. And we had to deal with a lot of the mental stress of that too. The clock's winding down 10 minutes and it's a tie, and there's no overtime again. I think that was a bit of a learning curve for us that hopefully we learned and can be better at it this next year.
Why do you think they went through with that? Is it like health reasons?
Yeah, I mean, there's a significant study, sports science study, particularly in soccer, because it is such a world sport. There's so much science behind training loads, and soccer is not necessarily made to be a game you play within 48 hours because of the rest that you need. And so I think that was a lot of it. But I mean, we don't play too many games. Our season is kind of crammed into 2.5 months, which is a bit of a challenge. But it just really kind of evens out the field a little bit more. It's difficult for the NCAA tournament selection people to kind of decide, well, is it a good tie or a bad tie?
Yeah.
It impacts RPI because there's not really a number that's really associated in that RPI. I mean, we had won a lot of games, and I think those ties felt like losses for us this last year. And I just had to keep reminding our team where our RPI was because of our strength of schedule. We didn't have the wins we were used to having, but because we had played such a strong schedule, the ties didn't put us out of contention for rankings and tournament. But that was something that we kind of had to fight through the whole season because we weren't getting the results we wanted. So they felt almost as if it was a loss because we expected to win those games.
I mean, as an athlete or somebody that's competitive, if I didn't win,
hey, look, it's
a loss.
We saw plenty of the opponents celebrating like it was a win.
Yeah, and that was hard on South Field. I mean, to see Alabama, both Alabama and Arkansas, and they beat us. We tied Arkansas at South Field, but they celebrated like it was the biggest thing ever.
Like it was a win.
Because to them, it was the biggest thing.
And the same thing happened to us in conference. It cost us the conference championship. We figured that we out of about 75, 80 shots, all we needed to do was score one of those, and that would have solidified the conference championship because of some of those ties.
BYU Sports Addict. By the way, we've got folks all over the world on our live stream tonight.
That's awesome.
From Australia, Singapore, you name it.
Yeah, World Cup.
World Cup
Yes.
stuff. So BYU Sports Addict writes, BYU women's soccer is perhaps the best, if not one of the best programs at BYU. Seriously, spread the word and go watch their games. They're really fun to watch.
Awesome.
So you got some fans on here.
Love it.
Let's talk about some of your stars.
Sure.
Brecken Mozingo is a senior, 13 goals last year, 10 assists, team leader in those two categories. How vital is she for the Big 12?
She's extremely vital for us. Brecken she had a kind of a breakout season this last year and found her confidence and her rhythm and just such a tough opponent to match up against because she can beat you 1v1. She has a really great cross. She has a long range shot. She can get in tight. And so she's really hard for our opponents to kind of manage. And because of the unique system we play, we find her in gaps in spaces often. And she really took advantage of that last year. And I think I just feel like she's going to even have more of a breakout season this year.
Really?
I'm super excited for Brecken. She looks great right now, so she's ready to roll.
Olivia Katoa used to be Olivia Wade.
Yeah.
Now she's a Katoa. She had 9 goals last year.
Yeah, and Liv's played 3 different key positions for us during her career at BYU. She played kind of where Jamie's playing as a freshman when she came in. Then she went on a mission. When we played for the national championship, she was out wide, actually in Brecken's spot, kind of where Brecken plays right now. And last year, with the graduation of Kayla and some other key players, we moved her around a little bit. And it was the second half of the season, once we got into conference play, that we found her at that attacking center mid where Kayla played. And she really found her confidence in her rhythm. It's hard sometimes when you play different positions, I think, in any sport, but typically the number 10 position in soccer is one of the toughest, and a lot of pressure, and he's kind of the quarterback, the playmaker, and she really settled into that spot really nice at the end of the season, and I think she's going to own it this year.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think players that play multiple positions, do they, within their development, do you think that they end up having, a better career versus somebody who came in out the gates just one position?
I think I've seen it both ways. So I think it's kind of an individual thing. I've seen, someone like Jamie Shepard came in and she played the 6. She played that defensive center midfield her whole career, and she's just gotten better and better and better at it. Where, I think Liv, especially that position, she's had to play more of a defensive role, but then an attacking role and then a playmaker role. And I feel like this coming year, she's really going to put it all together. So I've seen it both ways, where people have played some different positions and really excelled, particularly that senior year, where they've found that confidence on the field and kind of finding that spot that really fits them.
Is that when you, as a coach, to judge,
Coach gets to decide.
You got to just focus on one thing.
Yeah,
one thing.
It's like a puzzle. You get your group, and every year it could be different based on the holes that you've got to fill from places, seniors that you graduated, I think it goes back to kind of recruiting, and we talk a lot about recruiting really versatile players that can play any of the positions. You've got someone right now like a Kendall Peterson who has started at the outside back for a couple years, and even Liv Smith. Neither of those girls played an outside back position during their youth career, but they're so versatile. We needed them at that time, and then they've just kind of taken over that slot back there.
Shepard gave you 7 goals last year. She's back as a senior.
Yeah.
And then Allie Fryer, freshman, gave you 9. She's back as a sophomore. How about those two?
Yeah, well, Jamie Shepard, along with Liv, there are 2 captains. Yeah. And I think the really growth that we saw from them last year is their ability to really lead the team. I mean, that's a big mantle to carry when you're used to someone else doing that. And I think the experiences we had last year and through the off season have challenged them. So I think our leadership is as good as it's ever been with Liv and Jamie. And Jamie's a big part of that with the experience she has on the field and now the leadership that she feels, carrying the team a bit and feeling that pressure. I think she's good with that. And, Allie Fryer had an amazing freshman year for us coming off the bench. I think Allie's going to play a lot more minutes. I think she'll score a lot more goals. I think her future is wide open right now. The girl is so fast, so strong, and has an amazing shot. So we'll see. It's tough. She's going to come in with really high expectations. We'll see if she can manage those. But our expectation is to score a lot more goals than we did last year.
Do you see the girls that maybe are naturally they're leaders from a team perspective, like the team rallies around them, they look at them, but internally they're like, oh, I don't want to be. How does that impact? Because it sounds like, what you said is with Jamie, she's more comfortable in that leadership role. Do you think there's an impact with, on the field? Hey, I don't want to be a leader, but I just want to kind of do my thing.
Yeah, I think there's the players like that. I think it can be learned. I think they can grow into it, but I also think you can't have too many kind of main captains. But I think we expect all of our girls to lead, at least lead by example, and lead through support and that all-in mentality. But you have to have some coaches on the field, especially in soccer, where there's no timeouts, there's no set plays necessarily other than a few set pieces. You have to have those kind of coaches on the field that are holding their teammates accountable. And some players aren't super comfortable with calling people out, and holding people accountable.
And some people are a little too eager to do that.
Some are a little bit more comfortable, I will say. And I think that's a big part of the leadership growth with Liv and Jamie, is feeling more comfortable in that. And they've worked so hard and have been so successful, and they're such good friends with the girls on and off the field that they've earned that respect, and the girls will follow them. Yeah.
So let's go to the net now. You got Savannah Mason, who's a junior, 21 starts in 21 games last year, 57 saves, 23 goals. So now you've got experience all over the field. Now you've got a really experienced goalie. How important is that going into the unknown of a new conference?
It's huge. I mean, I just got through talking to campers. I've been in camp mode, for 2 months straight, and the goalkeeper is so vital. You can be a good team, but with a great keeper, you're going to win games. And you can be a great team, but if you only have an average keeper, you're not going to win as many. And so that goalkeeper position is so vital. Savannah got such great experience last year. It's tough to go in. She hadn't seen a lot of action, and she'd been in our program 3 or 4 years, but that's how a lot of our keepers are. They kind of work hard, kind of wait for their opportunity to kind of break through. And Sav started every game for us last year, and I think mostly built confidence. It's hard going in when you haven't been in. That's a lot of responsibility on a goalkeeper. I don't know how those goalkeepers do it, to be honest with you. I don't know how they do it.
It's crazy.
It's a crazy position.
It's like nothing going on until all of a sudden the game rides on.
One little mistake, one bad angle, one quick decision can make a huge difference. And Sav got some really great experience with some tough opponents and some unique situations with a lot of pressure. You can already see through our spring season, and just with her back on the field right now, and at camp I get to see him a lot. She's grown a lot.
You got to have a short memory. I'm assuming, just like
a defensive back.
Yeah, like a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have like a little swag too, because if I get beat for a touchdown, and my opponent gets in my face and celebrates and says I suck, through that mentality, I'm like, no, you suck. I don't care if you just scored, a touchdown.
So much about a keeper is just a presence. They might not touch the ball, but just their presence on the field and just how they move, their body language. You see that in football all the time. That confidence can really bring a lot to the team.
How do you recruit for that when you're in the living room, especially because we know with athletes, they're on their best behavior, right? Sure. You're seeing kind of like dating, right? You're seeing the best of everything. So how do you see that off the field? Obviously, you could see that through watching film, high school. But how do you see that in that personal interaction?
I think it's something that's learned too. I mean, I think that being able to just brush off, mistakes is a really tough thing, and it's all about a mindset. And I think that's something that keepers really have to learn more than others. It's so much easier, I think, to lose your confidence if you give up a goal than if you just made a bad pass. So, I think that's something we work a lot on. And I know Savannah spent a lot of time working on that mindset and learning how to kind of blow off some of the mistakes, but still know how valuable she is and important to the team success for her to just be there. Yeah.
BYU soccer coach Jen Rockwood's on the Wise Guys tonight, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. Podcast will be up tomorrow. There are 10 players on your roster who've served missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 6 of them returned this summer, meaning they put their soccer careers on pause for 18 months to teach the gospel around the world. What dynamic does that bring to your program? Because 10 is a lot.
It is. It's we're a very unique dynamic. I think unique to all the other teams out there. Usually because we have more married kids on our team than most. But now it's the mission has has been a big impact in our program. To be honest with, as a coach, it's tough. It's tough to manage rosters and scholarships and positions and all of that, because with the girls, you know, guys, sometimes you plan on that, and girls will come up to you where they told you, no, I'm not going, and then 2 weeks later is like, I need to go.
Like about 18 months ago, you had some surprises, right?
I've had several surprises, and then another surprise this summer, you know, with Haven, Savannah's younger sister, as a goalkeeper, leaving us with 2 keepers for this fall, which we've never had. So you kind of have to just hope that it's all going to work out and support them. And we've had great success with our return missionaries. We've never had 6 come back at the same time. So we'll kind of work them into the program. And, you know, we have a lot of returning players. We have a lot of young players, but now we've kind of got these missionaries who are kind of young in their soccer career, but a little bit older and a little bit more mature. And it adds a really unique, really good dynamic. And like I said, we've had tremendous success with return missionaries on the field.
How many foreign languages do you have out there?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, last year, Nat Wells, she was our only senior. She spoke Mongolian.
Yeah.
How about that?
Wow.
Yeah. So
she's mad at you or frustrated. She can say something in Mongolian. You're like,
Right.
yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So Abby was in Cape Verde, I think. So I think she spoke maybe a unique language there.
Yeah.
But you know, Caroline was in Brazil, and we had some Spanish speaking.
Yeah. Spanish, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Football gets, you know, a lot of. I almost said a word I shouldn't have used. I'm gonna keep it PG-13. Actually, I'm gonna keep it PG.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of.
If you ever wonder yourself, should I say something? That is the red flag to say no, you shouldn't.
I know it. When I stopped right there, it was like a false start on the line of scrimmage. That's why I paused and I remember. Okay, so a lot of analysts around, you know, college football will always kind of give BYU excuse, and they'll say, hey. They went on a mission. They're grown men versus playing against, you know, 18-year-olds, and they're mature, et cetera, and they see it as an advantage. Obviously, us being here, we know that it's less of an advantage. Do you get that same stereotype within, you know, your soccer players?
I don't think as much, just because I don't think it's talked about probably as much as it's discussed football. And again, we usually only have a couple here and there. It seems like in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been more of an impact on our program. But there's really not a huge benefit athletically. Right. I mean, there just can't be. I mean, mentally, of course, they're going to be a more mature person and have gone through a lot of tough experiences. And I think a lot of those challenges of a mission help them out athletically, because we all know, those of us that deal with athletes, it's tough. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, there's injuries, there's just so much working out and sacrificing. Then you take 1.5 to 2 years off. That's a lot. It's a lot of time. And so, I think it just makes them, that much more hungry to get back and maybe work that much harder. So I think there's probably definitely pros and cons to it, but I don't see it as a advantage.
Kalani likes to, with the missionaries that come back, have them sit out the year. Mm-hmm. Just to try and save their hamstring and all the injuries that seem to pop up with athletes that are hurrying back. But he's got 120 guys in his roster. Do you have that luxury, or do they have to get right back in?
It's kind of year to year, kind of based on our situation. Yeah. I remember Rachel Bingham, little Bing. She came back from a mission, and we didn't really need to try and push her back. We had some people that had some good experience in that, so we did redshirt when she came back, and it ended up, her advancing to that 5th year where she had such a great year for us. And so it's kind of a case-by-case scenario. We haven't even made any final decisions yet on this group of freshmen coming in on the red shirts. We'll just kind of see how it plays out, at least these first couple weeks. Yeah. The problem is we don't have a lot of time.
Right.
We're playing a game like in almost a week from when we start. So, but fun fact, we did have 2 missionaries come back and pass our fitness test, which is absolutely crazy.
Those are tremendous athletes. Yes. They can do that.
Do they usually not pass when they come back?
No, it's a pretty rigorous fitness test, and
they haven't been training.
No, I'm amazed. I think they were able to get some workouts in on their mission towards the end.
Good for them. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the schedule. We broke it down into 3 waves. August 5th, the blue-white scrimmage at Southfield. That's where folks are battling for, I don't want to be red-shirted, I want to
Yes.
play. So there's a lot on the line.
Yeah.
But August 10th, you're at Rutgers, back east in an exhibition. Then you come all the way back here 2 days later for Idaho State. Is that when you referenced a moment ago of taking some country-wide trips to get ready for what's coming? Is that one of the, because they're both exhibition games?
Right, and I think last year we went to North Carolina. It's kind of fun. We started at North Carolina as an exhibition game, and we actually ended there in the NCAA tournament. So I think it is an advantage for us to go out, especially for an exhibition game. Rutgers was in the Final Four with us a couple years ago. They have a lot of great returning players, so I think we'll know immediately kind of where we are, what we're working with from the first game. This is the first year I've played 2 exhibition games.
Right.
That being the possibility of a tournament on the end. We're only allowed 20 games in the regular season, and the exhibition count as towards those games.
So you want to schedule?
Yeah,
those,
so
right?
I've only usually played 1 exhibition and then played 19 countable games. But with the opportunity for us to play in a conference tournament, we're going to get hopefully, three more games on top of that. So you see a lot of teams now playing 2 exhibition games. But I just wanted to get another home game, and we were able to get Idaho State. So, but yeah, the travel and the quick turnaround
jet lag type
is something
thing to
that
deal with.
we just are going to have to be dealing with all season.
August 17th, St. Louis is the opener at Southfield. Then you have Cal State Fullerton on the 19th, Long Beach State on the 24th. This is all next month, by the way.
I know. It's
At
coming
Boise
so
State
fast.
on August 26th. Then you wrap up August with UCLA at Southfield.
Yeah.
August 31st. How big will that one be?
It's huge, defending national champions.
Yeah.
But can I mention that St. Louis finished in the top 10 last year as our home opener?
Really?
So they were a top 10 program last year, and so we'll have 2 top 10 teams at home in the month of August. So, but yeah, the UCLA thing will be huge. I mean, national champions.
Place will be packed.
They beat North Carolina, who knocked us out.
Yeah.
I think it'll be packed. I think the freshman orientation will help when we get all those freshmen packed in at Southfield. So we're really, really looking forward to that.
All right, Bilo, run through September.
Okay, so September 2nd, you have Utah Valley, then at Utah, that's pretty
It's tough.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, from a fan's perspective, that's fun.
Yeah.
TCU, which is the Big 12 opener, Utah State, at Baylor, at Texas, and then Cincinnati.
That Cincinnati game's the night before the Big 12 football opener against
Yes,
Cincinnati. So
I
it's going to
know.
be a Thursday, Friday into General Conference weekend. That'll be one of the great weekends of the
Yes.
year. But let's go back at your Utah State game in Logan on September 16th. 8 of your first 9 games are in state, and the one that's out of state is Boise, which isn't too far away. Nice job on the scheduling.
Well, I do my best.
Yeah.
it's a challenge. I mean, we were up at Utah State last year and ended up in one of those crazy ties that just felt like we got punched in the gut again before we started conference.
But just hanging around, how'd you get hanging around Utah? I mean, you're going to travel a bunch.
We are.
But you didn't have to do it in September.
Yeah, I mean, we typically play Utah every year. We've been playing Utah State here and there, and then UVU. They actually were one of the top RPI teams that got an.
And you beat them in the tournament
and they got
last
an
year.
at-large bid. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So UVU is a very good program. They had their best season ever. So it's actually turned out to be a great RPI and actually a very challenging game for us. Yes,
Yeah,
'cause
I'm
they
not
did
calling
get us
them
the
easy
year
games,
before. Yeah.
but they are local games,
Yes,
which is
local.
good.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think
And,
Coach Pope is realizing that as well, on the basketball side, too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too that some people don't realize how tough, unless you're kind of in coaching, how tough the in-state games are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot riding on them, and especially for us, we're expected to win all of those games, and I usually know most of the rosters because a lot of them wanted to come to BYU,
sure.
and so there's a lot on that line every game, and we will always get their very best
That's
year
why
in and
it's
year
tough.
out. And it's tough.
That's exactly why I said I was gonna mention that is because those players are scorned, right? And look, I got my scholarship taken away from me after I committed my whole sophomore year of junior college to San Diego State. And when I came here, obviously it worked out better, way better.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even be here tonight.
Right. Look at you now.
I wouldn't even went to a bowl game.
That's true.
But going into that season, we played Oklahoma, we played Florida State. I cared about none of those.
Right.
I didn't care about Utah. I said to my guys, I don't care if we win 0 games. I want to win 2 games in my career, which is San Diego State, because I was scoring for it.
Yes.
So you got to, so with you and well, all the sports, you have Utah State, right? I don't know how it is maybe with Utah, because they may feel that they're on the same level, but definitely UVU now, right?
Yeah, I would say we've definitely had the upper hand on Utah over the years, and so it is. There's a lot of players who, and I have to remind my players. I'm sure Kalani does too. There's a lot of girls on the team that would have liked to have been in their shoes, and they're not, and so they've got something to prove to us coaches and to themselves. So those in-state games, I think, for all the sports at BYU are more challenging, I think, than the fans realize.
Hey, Les says, hello, Coach Rockwood, from your Santa Fe, New Mexico friends.
Nice. Santa
Les,
Fe.
good to have you with us. All right, let's go to October. You're at Iowa State October 2nd, Texas Tech October 5th, Kansas State October 9th, at Oklahoma State October 12th, and then at Oklahoma on the 16th. I don't know if you just stay back there the whole week, because that's a lot of back and forth, and then Central Florida before the tournament on October 23rd. That's a tough October.
Very tough. It's wild to hear those teams names in October. It's something none of us have ever had before. And as a coach, I've played most of the teams over my career, but obviously our players haven't. And so I think they're really excited to go to some big name schools and college towns with phenomenal facilities. And I think that's something that we can really look forward to. The newness of it all is really exciting. Our
pleasure to have head coach Jen Rockwood on the Wise Guys tonight, ahead of BYU soccer debut season in the Big 12. All the games that we just talked about will be on ESPN Plus, available to everybody. Might cost you a few bucks, but you can watch the game, which is access is still, top priority. But Southfield, the average attendance last year was 3,186. So I went over there to the Big 12 and started looking around. The TCU led the Big 12 in attendance. Their average was 1,152. So more than triple at Southfield. And folks in the Rock will want to hear this too. But how big of a home field advantage has Southfield become in your program?
It's huge. It's huge. We're so fortunate to have phenomenal fans. We're supported by the soccer community locally. We're supported certainly by the students and people of BYU, but just a tremendous fan base. And we always tell the girls, you got to play great soccer and score a lot of goals if you want anybody to come watch them.
Yeah.
So, but they definitely notice it. They know when there's not some standing room only, and they know when it's packed, and it's such an advantage for us. As I think we're number 1 in the country and have been 1, 2, or 3 really. I mean, for 20-something years. So we've always had such a great fan base on Southfield, and you can just feel the energy. I think it's one of the best places to watch and to be a part of a women's college soccer game. I'm
curious, and I agree, and I'm curious as these Big 12 teams come, some for the first time, to experience one. They're going to talk about altitude, and just like everyone does for the football stadium, but they come into Southfield, and they're in the Big 12. They've been in the Big 12 for years, but that doesn't mean they have big crowds. And they roll out of the locker room to your stadium, and it's full, and they're all cheering for the other team, your team. I'm curious just to see how they react to, wait a sec, we were the big time.
Right.
And we let you in, and we come to your place, and now we realize that actually in this sport, you're the big time.
Yeah, and that's where we want to be. We want to be big time, and bringing those teams in, it gives us a lot more exposure than we've had. The exposure we had nationally from just when we went to the WCC was huge. To be in a conference with a Santa Clara and a Portland who had won national championships before, and a Pepperdine and that sort of thing. And now just the name of the schools that we're going into, even though we hope to be the big dog, we hope to be the main team.
Right.
That's our plan. We'll see. It will be more of a challenge, I think, than we faced top to bottom before in any of the conferences we've been into. But I know this group of girls is really committed to playing some really good soccer and getting results.
What I loved the most was having away games, running out the locker room onto the stadium and seeing that we had more fans than the opponents. And now, granted, they were like New Mexico State and Wyoming and New Mexico's UNLV, especially UNLV. In soccer, with you guys traveling, have you seen the same kind of experience?
We definitely have. I mean, obviously at a smaller level, but there's no question. In fact, one of my favorite games, you had asked me some of my favorite games,
here.
right?
Yeah.
Well, one of those games was at University of Portland, and this is kind of back in their heyday. We had just entered the conference, and they could fit 4,000 or 5,000 people in their soccer stadium, and they were ranked 6th in the country, and we walked in there. And we were used to kind of having that kind of fan base around us. But to go into their place and beat them in front of their fans, I bet we had over 1,000 BYU fans that came to Portland to watch us play and cheer us on. And
the Cougar fans in the Portland area are awesome.
And I'm from Portland too, and so that was probably a super memorable experience for me. And we get Cougar Nation shows up wherever we go. Really exciting. Coaches and teams are always super confused. They're like, oh, they travel so well. And I'm like, well, we get a few parents that travel, but
these are your
the rest
neighbors.
of them are here.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we get to your other 4 biggest games, I do want to, and we'll finish up with that, but you've got some coaching moves. Brent Anderson promoted to associate head coach. She's been on your staff since 2017. Tasha Bell's a new assistant, comes over from Utah Valley, but coached at Minnesota, gives you a little P5 experience in that form. Those 2 are pretty important to you, aren't they?
Yeah, I have an amazing staff. I have more help than I've ever had, and Brent was at UVU for 11, 12 years, built that program so for him coming over to help me at BYU was a big very fortunate for me and for our program, and he's brought so much, and just with everything that he's brought is obviously appropriate to give him that associate head coach title. And Steve Magleby has also been with me for 5 or 6 years, and they're just such experienced coaches. They could be head coaches anywhere, and so just fortunate that they've stayed around to hang out with us here at BYU. And I know they love the team and they love everything about BYU. And then the NCAA just changed the rules starting July 1st, where volunteer coaches could now be paid. And so we were fortunate. Our administration allowed us to bring on Tasha. She's been at Minnesota when she's getting her PhD, and then she's been at UVU as a goalkeeper coach for the last couple of years. So she was excited to come back. She worked for Kalani for a little bit in the football. If you remember Tasha, you probably know Tasha.
Do you have to be a goalie? Did you have to play goalie to get on your staff?
Well, because I certainly never have. And
Brent was the goalie
would.
at Utah State,
yes.
right? And Tasha was goalie at Utah Valley.
Yes.
I don't know what position. Was he a goalie?
Steve played lots of different positions. He's versatile like me. We'll be the versatile field players.
So you don't have to be a goalie to do that?
No,
just
but
a coincidence?
Our keepers are in good hands, so we're excited about that.
All right, let's finish with the 5 best games under your administration. By the way, isn't it kind of cool to walk around and go, I'm the only coach?
It's just kind of weird, yeah. It just goes so fast.
It's like, who came before you? No one.
I know.
It's just me.
It's wild. You see alumni coming back with kids. They're in college now, and yeah, it's wild, but it goes fast.
I have 2 boys, 11 and 7, and one of my teammates, when I was a senior, he was a freshman. His son is 13, so we celebrated a birthday together, and they did, and there was a couple of our teammates there, and nobody really recognized me with him because he's almost like my height.
Right.
So it's just weird, and especially seeing all my teammates, obviously are like 6'5", so their kids at 11 years old, 10 years old, are already taller than me. So it's a crazy feeling, but it's also a cool feeling to see like this is the next generation.
Right.
Have you offered kids like that, like Kalani has?
I have had a couple.
I think he's reached down to the 8th grade.
Yeah,
And I think there might be a rule now that you can't.
There is, thank goodness.
Would you ever do that?
And Gordon Eakin had an 8th grader who played catcher this year, but he offered when she was 14. I wrote a story about that, and I think there is a rule that says, like in their junior high, I don't think you can mess with them in junior high.
Yeah,
because
you used to be able to recruit them when they were freshmen. I had some Reckon committed actually to us originally when she was a 9th grader, Liv Wade. So we've had to. Yeah. I know some 8th graders I'd like on the team right now. I won't say names, but I know who they are. So yeah, we got to keep an eye on those 7th and 8th graders early on.
For sure.
All right, so we'll put the Portland game down on the list. The 5 best games under Coach Jen Rockwood, and we asked her to think about this coming in. because she would know best. We study it all and all that, but a big game to us might not be one of the biggest games that you've had, and you've played, coached so many of them.
Yeah.
So Portland's one. Let's go down that. Let's list the others.
So one that came to my mind was actually one that we didn't win, but it was a huge game, and the season was 2012. We were number 1 seed going into the tournament, and we had home field advantage, so we played our first 3 games at home, and then we were able to host North Carolina in the Elite Eight. And that was a special game just because playing North Carolina. I mean, when I was a young coach, I got my hands on every book and DVD that Anson Doran ever wrote or ever did or anything online, and so he was an idol and an inspiration to me, and just the history that UNC program had, and to have them on South Field in the NCAA tournament, knowing that we were actually the higher seed, and coming out to the field, and the fans were already there, and you don't get that very much in women's soccer, but the fans were already in the stadium when we came out. And that was just a really big time feeling. And we played a great match, but ended up losing 2-1. Crystal Dunn, who's actually been quite a star on the women's national team, actually scored the goal to beat us.
Oh, really?
That year in 2012. But that was a really special year for us, even though so I think it's one of there's only 2 games we've ever lost in the NCAA tournament that I wasn't really mad about afterwards. And one was the loss to North Carolina, and then one was the Florida State loss to PKs.
Is that because you like the girls executed, played almost perfect, and maybe just that day the opponent is better? Because I'm okay with that as well. If I lose a game and I executed, didn't make any mistakes, but the man across from me was just more talented physically, I could walk away.
Yeah.
But what I can't deal with is the mistakes. And knowing I didn't play my best. Was that
right?
similar?
And then I think these are the only 2 games I haven't been really mad about in my whole 400 and something games.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
the championship
but yes,
game was
it was
something.
exactly because of that. Because we were playing. I mean, North Carolina, they've won like 22 national
It's like
championships.
playing UCLA and John
Yeah,
Wooden.
and they ended up actually winning the national championship that year
Yeah.
too. And so you're playing the best of the best. And you played them respectfully. And it was an amazing game in front of a packed stadium. We thought we had it a couple times. I was off the bench celebrating, and it was cleared off the line, and then they went down and they scored, and then Florida State was something super special again, playing the best of the best in the national championship game, and knowing the level that our girls played at in that game,
and what you had to do to get there,
exactly,
and who you had to beat,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's how I kind of felt with both of those games, because we had to play 2 ACC teams going before we played North Carolina at home and beat them at home. So some special memories for sure.
Okay, 2 more.
I would say our first run to the Elite Eight, we beat Villanova in PKs. And so that was back in 2003. That was the first time we kind of broke through the Sweet 16. We had been to the Sweet 16, I think, a couple times prior to that. But in 2003, we kind of broke through in a PK match at Villanova.
Nice.
And I remember thinking, wow, going to the Elite Eight. We were going to UConn for Thanksgiving weekend, and it was freezing cold and windy.
It's miserable back there.
We didn't play very well, dang it, the first half. Played really well the second half, but couldn't catch the game.
Yeah.
So that was a special game too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Portland beating them on the road. We got North Carolina at home. Villanova to reach the Elite Eight. Were we counting the Florida State game? Was that one of them?
I think so. I think you have to.
Because it's championship, you got to throw that one in.
Yeah.
And it was PKs, which meant that you went toe to toe, and then it's, and we saw it. We see it in big time soccer. We're going to see it in the World Cup that's going on right now. It's, I guess, left, they went right. That all of a sudden 3 hours is decided.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's frustrating for sure.
Is there a better way to do it?
I don't know. They haven't come up with one in
because you've already done the 2 overtimes.
So
somehow it's got to end.
Yeah,
you can't have a tie in the
I know
elimination
it's
rounds.
tough, and it's something that you don't really ever get to do during the regular season. So
what if they did like a 2-on-2?
I know.
Or
Or they used to do back in old MLS. I think they did like a 1v1 with the keeper, with the person dribbling at the goalie. But
I'll be
it's
honest.
hard.
As a viewer, though, when it comes down to
it's
penalty
pretty
kicks,
intense.
you're right there.
You're all in.
Oh yeah.
You're all in. So some of those girls in those PKs at Santa Clara and Florida State really hadn't taken a PK since like they were in high school.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
because you don't run into
Yeah.
it very often
Right.
unless you're in the NCAA tournament. And we've
Did-
won some and lost some in the NCAA tournament. It's a tough loss, but man, it's an exciting win.
Yeah, for sure.
Did
sure.
the last World Cup, the men's World Cup, didn't it end in PKs? Wasn't it?
Argentina?
Yeah, wasn't it? Didn't it come
Yeah,
down
yeah,
to that?
yeah,
I think
I think
because
so.
we were just like
Yeah.
two countries just
Yep.
on the
Yeah.
edge.
Well, and the NCAA tournament last year too did for the women, UCLA,
Yeah.
That's
or
right.
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Last one. One of the last of the big five.
Oh, I think. Let's see. I think back in 20. I looked it up. It's kind of fun going over the schedule
Yeah.
and looking it up. And I think it was early on, even before 2003. I can't remember exactly. I think it was maybe 1998. We were in the tournament and we beat Stanford at home. And I remember it was lots of snow. I mean, there was snow. It was one of those where you had to push the snow off the field, and there was 4 feet banks of snow around South Field, but the grass was as green as could be. And Stanford came in with these big, heavy things. They didn't know what hit them, and we beat them 6-1, and it was just unbelievable. And then we went on to beat UCLA, and then ended up losing to Santa Clara in the Sweet 16. So some really fun, memorable moments at playing at the highest level against some of the best teams in the country.
That's great. 5 best games in Coach's career right there. All right, so you're going to get the team at practice next Tuesday, and as you huddle them up there on the field, is this the most talented roster you've had in what? And you've had some super good teams, but where's this group compared?
I think it's one of the top. I don't know that it's the top. We've certainly
Yeah.
had some talented players over the years. I would say this is probably also one of the most experienced groups that's returning. COVID did a lot of harm and a lot of frustration and
Right.
all of that, fighting through it. But because of COVID, these guys are all getting their extra bonus year, as we
Yeah.
like to call it. And
Yeah.
a lot of coaches didn't keep some of those players around, but we kept everybody and gave them that extra year, and it's going to pay off for us, I believe. So we return all of our starters from last season. So that rarely happens. Maybe you
Ever.
return 6 or 7, but to return 11,
Ever.
that never happens. And so again, it puts a little pressure because our expectations through
Yeah.
the roof right now.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a little bit of confidence and hopefully some swag because of how hard they've worked to get to this point, the sacrifices they've made, and just the experience they had. So I think the combination of talent, experience, and leadership and resiliency that they've learned over the last 3 years playing at a pretty high level, we hope that will be a big benefit and a big factor for us.
You know what's cool too is it's finally the Big 12 and all that stuff, and the very first Big 12 game is your soccer team against
Yeah.
TCU. So you get to lead the whole university into this new frontier.
We're excited. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Last time we played TCU, they knocked us out of the tournament. So, got to get back at them.
Yep,
That's right.
absolutely.
And they have been the best team in the Big 12 for the last couple years, and we're a top 10 team last year. So right from the get-go, we're going to see what Big 12 soccer is all about.
That'll be-
I don't think us as athletes or just the athletic program and analyst fans wouldn't want any other program to lead us off.
Well, appreciate that. This is a really good year for us to be taking that step
Yeah.
with the group that we have. It hopefully will set a high bar for the future.
We're glad you could break away from camp and come hang out with us. And
Well, I appreciate you having me.
You told us you'd be back when we got the schedule, and we waited patiently, and it was great to get you a week before it all starts. So
Well, thanks.
thank you very much. Good luck this season, and we want you back whenever you want to send your players. We'll love
great.
the opportunity to tell your story. So the great Jen Rockwood, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Coach.
it, guys.
Good luck.
So it starts Tuesday with practice, and then the blue-white game, chance for folks to get at Southfield and see a little bit of everybody, and then and the big time kicks in. Great to have the head soccer coach here, and she's built a program that is nationally respected,
Yeah.
and we expect will be picked to be the number 1 preseason favorite in the Big 12, if not number 1, number 2. With TCU, and then they can fight over that in the very first game. And
I don't see
awesome roster.
I don't see how they're not number 1. I mean, when she said that, 11 starters were coming back. That doesn't happen in any sport, like
Right.
on
And
any
if
level.
if the
right?
Big 12 media that vote on it or the coaches, if they're paying attention, that's a no-brainer.
Right, yeah.
But sometimes people don't pay attention and
Well,
cast votes anyway.
Sometimes people are biased. They'll say, "Oh, well, they haven't played a Big 12, a P5 schedule, right?"
There's always that. Although the WCC is a good soccer league.
It's true, too,
Especially Santa Clara and BYU have been in the top 10 forever, it feels like. Next week, Max Hall is going to join us, and Elijah Bryant. Elijah's back from Europe, and he's got his NBA. He's got all kinds of championships.
Right.
He'll be in studio with us. In August, how about this lineup? Jamal Willis, 4th leading rusher all time at BYU, and Nick Robinson will be here on the 8th. On August 15th, Tom Homo will be here. We got a lot to talk to Tom about. August 22nd, Hall of Fame and Olympic runner Henry Marsh, and Hall of Fame tight end Dennis Pitta.
Nice.
And then August 29th, BYU and NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young, and former punt returner Vi Sikahema, Elder Vi Sikahema on August 29th. That's how we're rolling
That'd be
into
good.
the Big 12.
That's a good one.
In August. Let's go over some campus notes and pick it up with volleyball before we finish up here tonight. And we sure are grateful to have you on our live stream. And those of you still hanging with us, if you haven't if you haven't revealed where you're watching from, you still got time. We'll give you some shout outs as we have our final few minutes. But women's volleyball is a big day tomorrow.
Yeah, season tickets go on sale tomorrow. Cougar Club members get the first shot at them on Wednesday at BYUtickets.com. Tickets are open to the general public on Thursday. And the season opener, August 25th versus Pittsburgh in Missoula, Montana. The home opener is August 30th versus LMU. And then the Big 12 opener is September 12th versus Houston.
All right, and a question to answer from Glenn. Do Olympic sports have any NIL money that everyone can have access to NIL money? And so, that's the world we're in. Football has a collective, and so some of it's a little more focused in groups, but these are groups also, it's on an individual basis, and so that opportunity is available to athletes. So thanks for the question.
The biggest opportunity is when, and this is just what I've seen around the nation, when Olympic sports, when there's a storyline behind them, like a Cinderella type of storyline.
And there's so many of those.
I know. I know it. And so, those usually don't get talked about from a national standpoint as far as the NIL stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if anybody or any team on the Olympic sports, if they have one of those Cinderella type of seasons, these brands will they'll come knocking.
Bullseye writing in, great guest tonight, like always. Thanks, Bullseye. You hit that right on the bullseye. Men's basketball, the Big 12 schedule matrix came out since we were last on the air. Home and away for BYU for the men will be Baylor, UCF, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. Home only, Texas, Cincinnati, Houston, and TCU. Houston might be number one coming into the preseason poll, if not 2, 3, or 4. On the road only at Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. So BYU is going to have to wait for the Jayhawks to bring their legendary program into the Marriott Center. Last year, by the way, according to basketball analyst John Rothstein, we talked about this morning on BYU Sports Nation, BYU, UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati played an average of 9.8 quad one games last year, while Big 12 teams played on average 21. 21. That's Gonzaga and St. Mary's versus the entire league. And so that's what's coming for the men.
That's a nervous chuckle that I just gave you right there.
It's going to be tough. Now, and how the women's matrix came out as well.
Yeah, so home and away, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, and TCU. Home only, Baylor, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, West Virginia. I'm happy to see Oklahoma in there.
Yeah.
And then away only, Texas.
We're not happy about that.
Yeah.
We're hoping Shaylee Gonzalez, who was a star at BYU and is a star at Texas, would come back.
Yep.
And
a great
Lauren Gustin would be able to reunite in a showdown at the Marriott Center. They're going to meet, but they're going to meet in Austin.
Right. And then Kansas State is away only, Oklahoma State, and UCF is away only.
It's going to be tough. That's a tough group for the BYU women as well. Delaney Gibb, give you an update on this young lady who we introduced you to on Wise Guys a short time ago on the night that she announced her commitment to play basketball at BYU. She's the number 2 rated player in Canada. at high school at her position, which is phenomenal. So she was on the Canadian under-19 national team, and they were over at the FIBA World Cup in Spain. Got to the round of 16, so the elimination rounds, and Canada beat Brazil 89-45, and Delaney had 9 points and 6 rebounds. In the quarterfinals, Canada beat Mali 82-69, and Gibb had 9. In the semifinals, Spain beat Canada 77-70. Delaney had 13 points and 6 rebounds. In the bronze medal game, Canada beat France 80-73, and Gibb scored 11 points, had some big shots in that one with 3 rebounds. Her tournament average was 10.3. She shot 42.5% from the three-point line. She's going to be a fun player to watch at BYU. She's still got a high school senior year to play through before she gets here, but she's going to be a special player.
You know, what's cool to see is it looks like, you know, her points or her performance, you know, continue to improve as the tournament went on.
Playing against the best players in the world, and still just 17 on that team. Anyway, she's good. Egypt's Jana Salmon, who's on the BYU team this year, she averaged 11.1 points for her country in the FIBA World Cup in Spain. So there's an update on 2 future Cougars. One sooner than later, but the one coming later is going to be really, really good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Jared Ward, former Olympian BYU track star and current BYU stats professor, won the Deseret News Marathon 10K as part of Pioneer Day celebration yesterday in Salt Lake City. He finished with a time of 27 minutes and 58 seconds.
He ran the 10K in under 28 minutes.
When did he last perform? When was his time at BYU?
I'll have to check that.
I just want to get some hope for the alumni game.
It wasn't too long ago.
Okay. So,
but
never mind. I guess I can't be that hopeful, because I was like, man, if he could do it, I got to be able to get an interception this year.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. He's teaching at BYU. And let's see, 6th place in the 2016 Olympics. So right around that time, he's been a phenomenal runner. So he wins the 10K, and then another Cougar wins the marathon.
I hope that all of the football players and the athletes go to him as a teacher for stats.
Mm-hmm. Jared Ward.
Yeah, I just see that. That's like an easy A, I think.
Let's give a shout out to Mike Otteson, who won the Deseret News Marathon in 2 hours, 32 minutes, and 12 seconds. 26.3. So we had a couple of Cougars represented up there in Salt Lake over the Pioneer Day holiday. On this day, let's roll out with some history. On this day in history, July 25th. There's some cool things that happen on this day. I like this segment, even though it really has nothing to do with our show, but it's always like interesting, like, that happened on this day?
Yeah.
All right, here's some things that happened.
Well, other than that, I learned a lot more than just this day, right? Like, a lot of this stuff I had no idea. So I appreciate this segment, probably more than you do. 1860, first intercollegiate billiards match, Harvard versus Yale.
Billiards.
Yeah.
They had a bowling thing.
Oh, I see.
No, it's pool. No, it's billiards.
I have no idea. I was waiting for you to explain, because I was like,
it's like on the pool table, billiards. It was Harvard against Yale. Anyway, that happened on this day in 1860. I can't believe there was an intercollegiate showdown between Harvard and Yale in billiards. 1866, Ulysses S. Grant is named first general of the Army. Now, Sherry Dew was born in Ulysses, Kansas. That city was named after Ulysses S. Grant.
Okay.
And she was with us a couple of weeks ago.
Nice. 1868, Congress forms Wyoming Territory, including Utah and Idaho.
So that went down. 1944, on this day, Operation Cobra. U.S. forces begin a major offensive in Normandy with air bombardment. On this day in 1944, a very tough time for the whole world.
1956, Roberto Clemente hits Major League Baseball's only walk-off inside the park grand slam to lead Pittsburgh to a 9-8 victory over the Cubs.
That could only happen to the Cubs. A walk-off inside the park grand slam
I would like to see that
to lose the game.
That video.
The Cubs have a lot of different ways to lose, and right now we're playing pretty good.
Did the ball get like hidden and stuck
Who
in
knows?
the wall?
Something crazy had to happen. The guy went all the way. 4 guys scored while they were trying to chase down the ball. Way to go, Cubs. 1964 on this day, the Beatles' classic Hard Day's Night goes to number 1, stays there for 14 weeks.
How surprised are you that I don't know? I've never heard that song. Pretty surprised?
No, not surprised. It was a great song. Reached number 1. Came out, got to number 1.
No, I'm saying that I don't know.
How do you
the
not
song.
know the Beatles?
I don't know.
Okay.
You know what? You can't judge me. You got to judge my parents. 1978, Pete Rose sets the National League record with 38-game hitting streak.
Imagine that, 38 in a row. Billy Casper won the U.S. Senior Open on this day in 1983.
1987, Salt Lake Trappers set the professional baseball record with 29 consecutive wins. Actor Bill Murray was part owner of the Trappers during that time.
Isn't that amazing? Bill Murray, part of the team. When I met Bill Murray on the set of Good Morning America in 1990, we were talking about him owning the Trappers back in Utah, and I just thought, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. You own part of the Trappers? And he did. He's been out to Salt Lake, and he loved the Trappers baseball team. 1999 on this day, Lance Armstrong wins the first of his 7 straight Tour de France titles, only to be disqualified years later for taking performance-enhancing drugs, which, by the way, helped him win 7 straight Tour de France's.
Yeah. Say no to drugs, all type of drugs.
That's right. Thank you, Bilo.
2012 opening ceremonies of the Olympic Summer Games in London.
In London. It was cool. Do you remember in the opening ceremonies they had a skit with James Bond and the Queen, and they jumped out of an airplane. Of course, there was an actor playing the Queen, and Daniel Craig. They jump out of the airplane, and that's kind of how they started the opening ceremonies. Since James Bond's such a British thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did a cool skit with that, and I thought the Queen was a good sport. And I don't remember anything else from the games. I just remember that. On these birthdays, on this day, July 25th, Walter Payton was born in 1954.
1967,
Matt LeBlanc. Have you heard of Friends, the TV show?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. I've never watched the episode.
He's one of those guys.
I have heard of it, though, but never watched the episode. Or Seinfeld.
2001. This might be the last time you're on the show. 2001, Bryce Young, the number 1 pick in the draft this past April by Carolina. So he's got a birthday today. A couple of deaths on this day that we want to mention. 1887, John Taylor, 3rd president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, died on this day. And in 1997, Ben Hogan, professional golfer, a 9-time major title winner, died on this day in 1997. Leads us to our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week from John Taylor. Philo?
If we take good care of one another, God will take care of us.
Well said. John Taylor.
Amen.
I want to thank Steve Clark, tight ends coach, and soccer head coach Jen Rockwood for joining Wise Guys tonight. What an awesome pair. And it was great to get an update on Isaac Rex and the tight ends, and, of course, the soccer team's ready to jump in there and go after a Big 12 championship. Next week, Max Hall, the winningest quarterback in BYU history, will be with us. They got a quarterback on their team, Ty Detmer back down in Arizona, who's committed to BYU. Yep. So I'll have to ask him about that. Elijah Bryant, great Cougar basketball star, now an international star with an NBA championship and I think 2 or 3 European championships. We're going to catch up on his story. He'll be live with us next Tuesday as well. Podcast will be up tomorrow. Look for it. Share it with your friends. And we'll just continue to grow this show. It was fun having everyone on the live stream. Those who were on the live stream identifying themselves. We tried to mention as many as we could, but it shows the global reach of Cougar Nation.
Yeah.
And this little show is someday not going to be a little show. It's getting bigger. But it pulls everybody in. Our goal, as Blaine said last week, was we want to create the biggest prime time social media live stream gathering of BYU fans on a weeknight when there isn't one, all over the world. And then, of course, if you miss us, then the podcast and at ysguys.com, you can watch it at any time and keep tabs on what the Cougs are doing.
What I love about this format and the community that you're bringing or that you're building is the users that are consistently coming in each week. they start to form relationships as well. So they start to have, conversations. They start to interact with each other, and it's pretty cool to see how a platform can bring different people around around the world, different backgrounds, with one commonality, right? But then start to develop relationships, in a digital way. So it's pretty cool to see, how you guys are developing and how it's growing.
Technology's bringing us together, makes the world smaller. What I learned tonight is that you have never heard of Rush, the Beatles, or ever watched Seinfeld, and yet we remain friends.
Jesus works miracles.
We do need more Jesus in our life. For the great Brian Logan, I'm Dave McCann. Blaine will be back next week with Max and Elijah. We hope you have a great week. We're wrapping up. The next time you see us, practice will have actually just ended. The first one of the fall, the first official practice of BYU as a member of the Big 12. And it's on. Oh, and by the way, next Thursday night on NBC is a football game. Jets and Browns. So it's just about here. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for watching The Wise Guys, and we'll see you next time.